All right, so Jared Goff just signed a pretty massive contract extension, and in the age of quarterbacks getting paid a ton of money, a quarterback getting over $50 million a year is not that surprising, although I think there's a lot of debate as to how good or bad Jared Goff is as a player, so that's kind of what makes this a contested decision. And just in general, the quarterback value conversation is one that I think is very fascinating and I want to have here with Jared Goff. What is the logic behind this move? I do think you can defend this move. I don't think it's just a straight up dumb move, and I don't think it's a straight up brilliant move either. I think that there is very valid critiques and very valid praises to give towards a move like this, and I want to give them both in a more complex situation than people sometimes realize. So let me try to make it as uncomplex as possible, which is what I try to do on this channel. Let's just dive into it. First, we have to talk about the contract details itself, just to get rid of a couple of narratives that aren't very great. Unfortunately, the numbers you see next to me are not the actual numbers. These are projections because some of the data is out about the contract as of recording this video, some isn't. So I'm kind of using the data we do have and I'm projecting on some other stuff. Like, for example, I'm assuming that the cap hit for the signing bonus will be evenly spread over the 4 seasons of the contract. That might not be true. It's projections. I'm assuming it's going to be backloaded. That's not how these things work always as well, but it is going to be something. There is some of the evidence is out that it will be backloaded to some degree. I just don't know how much. But yeah, long story short, this is what you're looking at. Just so you know what you're looking at. Number all the way to the left, those are the year that Goff will play. The next number over is going to be the cap hit. And then finally, the dead money. If he was cut that year, how much would there be in dead money? It's one of those things where one of the phrases I hate so much is when people say, well, really, the guaranteed money is all that matters. No, it is very much not all that matters. Usually not having a ton of guaranteed money, the benefit of that is that you can get out of the contract at a certain point if you want to. It kind of gives you safety valves more than anything. But it is certainly not all that matters. We do not yet have the information on which guaranteed money will be put in what year, but what I decided to do was give it the most generous possible guaranteed rate I could for the Detroit Lions, which is every dollar that I could give for the future, I did. So, I put the most non-guaranteed money as possible in 2028. That's what I did. Even so, if you're cutting him in 2028, it'd be a $32 million dead cap, and it's basically uncuttable the years before unless there's some clause that I'm unaware of. So basically, it's worth mentioning, this is a contract they're expecting him to probably play out. It's possible in 2028 there could be some sort of restructure and another extension and kick the can down the road a little bit. But for the most part, this is probably what you're expecting. We've seen Dak Prescott is currently having a similar situation this year where his cap hits like $60 million. So in 5 years, $70 million will probably be more reasonable than $60 million. But that's the logic here. But a couple of things that are worth noting is, the next couple of years, so 2024, that's the last year of his current deal. That hasn't changed to my knowledge. So, that's still going to be $32 million. And the next year is going to be $34 million. So if anyone's worried about, well, Goff just got a big deal, are the Lions screwed? The next couple of years should be pretty reasonable. Again, the $34 million is a projection, but I would imagine it's around there, if not even lower for the next year. But if it is lower, then more money gets put on the following years, of course. But the next 2 years, I am expecting that the Lions will be fine. And this is actually, in some ways, extending their window by giving this kind of deal because you get another year of cheap production before you get, or at least reasonably priced production, before you get to the really expensive Jared Goff contract later on. But, okay, those are the details. Long story short, this was, okay, we get it. That's how much he's going to make. But what does that mean? Can the Lions, let's be honest, this is what it all comes down to, can the Lions win a Super Bowl paying Jared Goff these cap hits? And what years can they win a Super Bowl with him, and what years can't they win a Super Bowl with him? That kind of stuff. So a NFL player is worth $30 million a win. That is their fair value. It's not a great contract if you have a player who's worth 1 win and you pay him $30 million a year, but it's a fair contract because just with the cap hit being 255 and the average team wins 8.5 games, that brings it to $30 million a win. That's, the average team spends $30 million million on a win. So for Jared Goff, he's worth about 3 wins. That's most evidence that I've come towards would say that that is the case. So if Jared Goff is worth 3 wins, and that means that, he'd be worth $90 million a year. That's a pretty great contract, only giving him $54 million. I think anyone who's looking at that is saying, well, wait a second, isn't this just a great contract then? Jared Goff is saving $37 million a year by doing this. So it's a really good contract. And the answer is yes. Yes, it's a really good contract. Quarterback contracts tend to be undervalued, if anything. But that's where things get a little tricky because, for someone like Jared Goff, the goal isn't to have a contract of fair value. If Goff got paid $90 million, then you're going to probably be an 8.5 win team, and it's not going to be very good. To be better than that, you want to be able to save some money. The issue is just that quarterback contracts is the easiest way to save money in this situation. For example, someone like Patrick Mahomes, players worth $30 million a win. Mahomes is worth 4.5 wins, meaning that Mahomes is worth, his true value is $135 million. So he actually saves $90 million, despite the fact that he is, still getting paid $45 million a year, which is less than Goff. So again, Patrick Mahomes is great. If you can go out and sign a Patrick Mahomes, go out and sign a Patrick Mahomes. But that is who you're competing against. That is the guy who's won the Super Bowl back-to-back years. If you had beaten the 49ers, that's who you would have had to play in the Super Bowl, which I know they beat them in the regular season. Big difference between beating the Chiefs week 1 and beating them in the playoffs. So who knows what happens. But even a guy like Brock Purdy, who, the 49ers were the team that beat the Lions last year and went to the Super Bowl. If a player is worth $30 million a win, Purdy, I don't think is as good as Jared Goff. We can debate this if you want. I'm going to put his worth at around 2.5 wins, though. Again, I'm using kind of simple numbers to make the point, but it's right around there for all these guys. So Purdy is worth $75 million, but he's saving $74 million because he's only making it's actually under $1 million a year. Which, how do you even live? Getting under $1 million a year. No, obviously a lot of money for a person, but for an NFL player, not so much. And in fact, that's half of Jared Goff is saving half of the money that Brock Purdy saves. So you just get that added value. Does this mean that the Lions can't win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff? Of course it doesn't mean that. Of course they can win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. It just means they're going to have to be that much better. They're going to have to be like $37 million better than the 49ers are, who are already really smart at this stuff, if they're going to beat the 49ers, right? It's that simple. Or you become, you make the, 4th best roster in football, and then your players get hot towards the end of the season and win that way, because there is element, it's not like the most talented team is always the one who wins it. And there's plenty of other ways to get good value contracts. One of the ways the Lions are doing it right now, in fact, the main way they're doing it right now, is with how well they're drafting. They're consistently getting really good players. They don't have to pay much because they're, on rookie deals right now. And, I think they had another really good draft. So if they can continue to do that, there's no reason to believe they can't be very competitive for a long period of time. I find this whole situation interesting because I do think the Detroit Lions have, with the Jared Goff contract, done an incredible job at consistently making smart decisions to handle that. They've consistently drafted really well. They have had some, they paid some of the players that are sort of homegrown, and those are really good players. I do wonder, does this put a ceiling on your team? Last year it didn't. I don't think it's going to put a ceiling on their team for this next year or the year after. After it, I kind of do. To be honest, my personal opinion, I would be very surprised if Jared Goff, with a $50 million cap hit in 2026, is able to win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying it can't happen. I've been very surprised before, but I'd just be very surprised if that happens. I would also be very surprised if in 2026 the Lions miss the playoffs. So that's kind of the other side of the coin, is getting into the postseason is still valuable, and this helps you do that. So to me, that's kind of where they're at, is I still think they have a great chance at winning the Super Bowl this next year. I still think they have a great chance at winning the Super Bowl the year prior. I do think that their window could be closing, and I think that they should, which they have kind of done, is, they traded for Carlton Davis, right? They've kind of said, let's focus on being good right now. which is, I think, a smart idea. So yeah, would I have made this call? I really don't know. I think I probably would have given it another year and then made a decision, because Goff is coming off of, in my opinion, his best season. So I probably would have waited a year and then made the contract. But like, it is, in my opinion, a bit of an overpay. Sometimes you got to make an overpay to win a Super Bowl. But for me personally, I guess here's the way I would phrase it. I do think it's an overpay. That's what I think. Is it better to overpay a quarterback than to not have a quarterback? Well, maybe. But just, as of right now, my first reaction is I think that Goff got a good amount of money. So, credit to him. Well done, Jared Goff. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.